Hello, and good time of day. This stream is going to be a little different, possibly shorter. Let me just click the button. Going to be reusing this one. Seemed good enough, but I want to talk about solo RPGs, which I've done a few of here. I don't have a lot of documents up, by that I mean literally none, to go over them. But the basis of solo RPGs comes from the good old days of, let me just change this, of having a D&D game and wanting to play it without other people. That's not big enough. There we go. It'd help if I could spell correctly. So there's a few things you could say about what a solo RPG is, and one of the ones that people might be familiar with the Fantasy Flight. I'm not sure, but there actually were a couple D&D modules that were solo. I actually have, I can go back and get it, but I won't. There were some advanced D&D titles, at least one. I think there was two, maybe a few more, but it had silly things such as needing to bring out 3D goggles or 3D glasses in order to read some of the secret hints so you didn't spoil yourself on maps and other things like that. I haven't gone deep into that one, but it was really something I wanted to get just for the collection. Fantasy... It is Fantasy Fight. Okay. Fantasy Fight technically is one. It comes from more of the choose your own adventure, pick a path. Pick a path books, but you roll dice. So it's close enough. And some of them got very complex. Some of them had hubs where you had to keep track of events that you had gone through so that you would have more or less options when you get back to there or go to other things. And then you just die randomly. Fantasy Fight is kind of interesting because for whatever reason, I'm trying to find the book right now. Actually, I'm going to walk over and get it so I can butcher its name. Oh, it's back. It's not back here, it's on the other bookshelves where I'm in a completely different area. But it was a recent discovery of this system, and I mostly got it for how weird it was. Okay, not finding it, so I won't be able to spell it correctly. Actually, I'm going to do a mild Google thing. It uses, it's a pretty simple system. It uses D6s, pure and simple. Yeah, it starts with a TO, and I cannot say the rest of it because it's probably in a different language. But I'm going to put in here relatively simple set RPG. Now, in a controversial category, actually, I'm going to say roguelikes / early D&D games. So there was a rash of a couple very early PC games that use procedural generation. I've never looked into anything besides Rogue, but they effectively using the random tables or a take on the random tables in the back of the D&D books would generate a quest for you and events you had to get through. You are effectively railroaded by random dice, but that's how some people would play anyways. So quite literally, solo D&D. Now, I'm actually going to look when this happened. Mythic Game Emulator. This is the one I've used before. It is the ultimate, goes on top of everything. I want to see if I can get a date on it. There's no wiki article. Oh well. Past that, I would say some people realize maybe you can play by yourself if you just roll up random situations from the tables. Because early D&D was very much procedurally based. You walk into a tile. Well, I wouldn't say that. I would say the D&D that was sold by TSR and such. I'm opening a can of worms here. Because TSR and... Is there another company? Well, either way. Gary, Gygax, and the rest of the crew. Effectively, if you didn't know, the early days of D&D had tournaments. And in order to have consistent rulings, D&D, the very early ones that were actually put out, was not what Gary and the rest of the creators played. They were effectively tournament rules that standardized all play so that you could go to the conventions and play the tournament games. Which is why back in the day, house rules and just wing it was a lot more accepted. And then people went to very much rules as written as how you're supposed to play the games. It's a very interesting topic, and I always find it funny because some of the famous dungeon modules, the Tomb of Annihilation, I think that's what it was, and other such things, were not stuff that the original creators would play. That was specifically made so that people would play them at conventions, and then you would have a winner by the end by how much EXP, gold, other events you did. And it had to have standardized rules, which is why D&D very much has the rulings in the early games and all that. And it tries to be as cut and dry about it as possible, and kind of goes against what they were doing. Because an old game of D&D, there's was a joke, at least back in the 2000s, maybe yeah, I think whenever Vampire the Masquerade got popular, the joke was you play the game by trying to use the rules as little as possible. And that's effectively how old D&D went, because literally you had no checks for anything. You had your basic ability scores, but it wasn't so codified that, oh, you talk to this person, you make this check to make them agree with you. It was actually theater kid roleplay, or at a very small scale, okay, my character's going to try to convince them. Okay, what's your character trying to say? They're going to try to work on the person's morals because clearly letting this happen is very bad. And then the referee would just like go, okay, that works, or no, that doesn't work. There was no rolling involved. The role play was You set up the situation, and the judge judges if it seems congruent with the world. And a lot of the older game types was you avoided combat because it was so swingy, and, well, most people would avoid combat because you could die. So you tried your best not to engage with the system. Some of the, I believe the OSR crowd, yeah, some of the OSR crowd considers combat a bad end state, and it just gives you a chance to get out of it, which I don't quite like because that doesn't fit with the modern sensibilities of how you play a RPG. People want to have the fights. But, yes. Anyways, to facilitate that, there's tables. There's tables, you walk out 10 feet into the swamp, you roll for a random encounter, and then you go to the swamp table and pull the encounter up. Then you roll reaction to see how the swamp creature that you might fight is going to react to you. I'm just going to put some things here. Random events. Random events, random counters. Actually, oh, can I pull that up? I recently acquired, by recently I mean months ago, an old Advanced Dungeons and Dragons GM book. Excuse me, I'm hoping it's back in one section of my library. I literally have enough shelves to call it a library. Yes, here it is. It's an old floppy thing that came from Toys R Us for $6.99. So it was pricey back in the day. And it's a floppy thing with three paperclip books in there. But okay. This sucker has random quests in it. I'm going to flip to that section because, okay, the villain forms, adventure design, sample adventures, adding detail, featuring a villain. Not what I'm looking for. I am looking for themes and goals. Because I had never heard of this before until I got this. But this Advanced Dungeons and Dragons official game accessory Dungeon Master's Design Kit by Harold Johnson and Aaron Alston. It has in how to make an adventure in the Adventure Cookbook, a theme table, action adventure, comedy, espionage, horror, mystery, revenge, romance, which I found funny. Very funny. Roll twice, ignore further rolls, so double up on it. Then you have goals, clear name, escape, explore a new area, encounter an old villain, gain money, gain power, protect endangered NPC, rescue NPC, retrieve item, settle a debt, survive the environment, thwart monstrous plan, win a war. And then it gives each one of these sections has like a paragraph of what that all entails. And then, what was the next one? Story Hook and MacGuffin. Dying Delivery. Grim Necessity. Hero Offended. Legend and Rumor. Mistake Identity. Mysterious Woman. Old Enemy. Old Friend. And Pressing Buttons. I'm going to actually look at Pressing Buttons because that was weird. As a general story hook approach. Think about the player characters, his personal goals, and his personal dislikes, and then you mess with them. You bring up that stuff and mess with them. The setting: alternate plane, cosmopolitan city, exotic distant land, hero's hometown, on the road, on the sea, torturous terrain, under the ground, under the sea. And then you get into very specific, like, catacombs, caves of magical folk, classic dungeon. Anyways, a little bit more, and you get your allies and neutrals. Tragic fellow hero, romantic loony, villainous ally. That's a 4% chance to get a villainous ally. And then you get to the master villains. The agent provocateur, the adventurer agent, the avenger, the conqueror, the corrupter, the destroyer, the god of chance, the lovable rogue, the organizer, the ravager, the sufferer, and the zealot. Oh no, that's slightly folded wrong. Oh well. And then you have your minor villains, which is, you set up before there, which has the childhood friend with a dark secret and the coward. So, for anyone like rolling their eyes at like a lot of modern tales, this book is from where's the date on it? Oh, it originally sold for $9. It was on sale at Toys R Us. This book came from... I cannot find a date. It's usually on the front page. Either way, this sucker's old. But... And even going more from there, it has the plots, the climaxes, such as a bloody battle, or scattered duels, or a throne room duel, or divine retribution. Some monster encounters that you want to throw in there. And all this. You could literally use that to play D&D by yourself back in the day. I don't know how many people did, but this is going to lead into some other things later, because these are effectively oracles. I'll explain that in a minute. So, very old past, the solo books that were made to be played like a pick a path, choose your own adventure thing. That truncated rules, you had no choice, you didn't do anything. And then procedural D&D, where you basically roll the tables, do stuff, and then move on and just like take it as you will. Probably don't even roleplay in it. It's like just doing a game of solitaire. That's actually what it was called back in the day, was solitaire books or solitaire modes. And then I would say roguelikes and early D&D games came a little later, but they are using the procedural D&D ideas. Then, I don't know if this was a proper term or if the most popular one, Game Master emulators, which is Mythic called itself the Game Master emulator, which runs, I'm sure this wasn't the first concept, as I said, I just went over a bunch of these. It runs on oracles. Oracles are random tables / ideas. It also runs on event / scene procedures. So effectively, Game Master emulators attempt to like stand in for Game Master, be an impartial judge. The most common oracle is literally a yes, no oracle, possibly with a little more stuff put on it. But you go, Here's this. Here's you think of what you have, then you roll on some procedure table to generate the next event, and to flesh it out, you roll oracles. Like, I'm going to get the book, aren't I? Yes, I am. Let me return this book, and I'll be right back. This should be on this floor at least. Okay, where are you? I didn't bring it upstairs, did I? There you are. Oh no, that's a compilation. No. Well, I have the first edition one down here. The compilation, that's a compilation 3. Yeah, I'll take the thin book. So I have the first edition. I like the second edition more because it is filled to the brim with every table you can imagine. But the basic idea is you think of the scene. I am going to go to this place. And then you roll on the table to get what sort of event it's going to be. Or at least what it calls it in here is the focus of the event. If I could find the dang table. It's a thin book. I should be able to find it. There it is. Nope, that's the event meaning, which will come up in a minute. This does have the old stuff, doesn't it? Okay, there it is. So first you would come up with a scene, then you would roll on the event focus table, which has a remote event, an NPC action, introduce a new NPC, move towards a thread, move away from a thread. Threads were basically like ongoing plot points under this system. PC negative, PC positive. And then you would roll on the meaning table to further figure it out, and then start rolling on yes, no question table in order to get the proper level of details so you can move on. So say, hey, I'm heading to a location, and then it has introduce an NPC, so you meet someone along the way. Very simple. But you're supposed to, read the chicken gizzards and chicken intestines and all that fun of just rolling on the tables. And with some of the systems, they have interrupts that force you to change what you think you're doing because you have to have a bit of randomness for this to work properly. If things are going exactly how you're working, you're writing with prompts. Which brings me to my next one, and these are the ones that took off a while ago. So these suckers, one of the biggest ones was 1,000-year-old vampire. I believe that's what it was. I will take a quick look. I have not bought this book because it is very expensive. Yes. So I think Wretched, which I do have. Wretched has its own system, which a lot of stuff worked off of. Oh yeah, sorry. Yep, PC Family, never have them. Wretched, actually, its claim to fame was you use a Jenga tower. I think it was called Wretched. Excuse me, I can actually go look. No, I think that's upstairs, and I'm not going to dig for it. Yeah, I think it is Wretched and Alone. But the basis of the game is you're supposed to have a Jenga tower, and you have a deck of cards. And this is where all the weird little deck of cards things that I both hate and love come from. I hate because it's a lot of shoehorning, and they do a lot of kind of arbitrarily need to have a thing for everything. A Torch in the Dark kind of had this as well, but they did group up some sets of them. But it's you use a full deck of cards when you probably shouldn't use a full deck of cards. But anyways, Wretched worked off of you were stuck in space. All their crew members are dead, or you can't wake them up, and there's an alien. And each day you would flip over a card. Sometimes it would say there's a risk roll, and you'd like knock a block out of the Jenga tower. If you don't have Jenga, there was a specific way to roll dice to get your result. And you were trying to fix your spaceship so you can go on, but it's effectively nearly impossible to have happen. You have to draw certain cards and not die before them. But each draw of a card will present you with basically a prompt, and you journal it down. Like, I heard hear creature outside of ship. Or, well, I say hear, see creature. Creature outside ship, and you would like write down, I think I saw something outside the ship. It's trying to get in. And you write that down, and you keep getting prompts and moving forward. Like, you ran out of food today. This system failed, and that's usually where you knock a block out. It's like, I don't think this will last much longer. And then you're supposed to like get the ace cards, and then you make a final roll to see if you succeed. At least that's in the modern systems. I don't remember for Wretched and Alone. Thousand Year Vampire was interesting, from what I had seen, because it's also a prompting system, but you kind of move your way forward. I don't even remember if it had a deck of cards, but you like rolled a dice to move forward along the line, and you have memories and items you in like an item system that you bullshit as to how you use to get out of your situation. And your memories are like kind of your skills, but since you live so long, you have to give up memories in order to get new things. Supposedly you can also like write them down into books, but sometimes you have to give up your books to move along. And I've seen a few other interesting systems go off that, but that one, if I remember correctly, you slowly plotted forward by like rolling the dice to move where you are on a in the book, and it maybe like had 100 entries or something. So that one is like a really good idea of how to have a structured solo game, which a lot of these are kind of like, as I said, I like that the deck of cards are used. I don't like that it's just 52 random things that you slot together and don't build off of each other. Having a kind of semi-related thing as you go forward through entries, but somewhat randomly, has a lot more cohesion. Anyways. But yes, the journaling system. And recently, people have made entire games based around soloing, which I have played a few. There's one I want to get to that is a kind of weird exploration body horror game where you are going through effectively a Leviathan on a planet because you're trying to get some material out of it and get back out. And it attempts to like key and lock a little bit, as well as generate the situation. It's more procedural game than what these other ones were. You can role play a bit and like suss out what you want to have for the situation that's going on. I'd like to see more of those. I'd possibly like to work on some of that sort of stuff. I tried to a few times, just thinking on it. But let's move to a new layer, just for that. So I want to go a little bit into basic game mechanics that come up, and like, do they serve this or not? Like some of the solo ones, I think 1-Bit Dungeon came out. It wasn't set up in a way I really liked, I think. I'll have to double check. Because I think it did at least attempt to separate the two parts of the dungeon, so you didn't, like, fight the boss on the first square. But, I'm getting ahead of myself. As I said before, deck. 52 prompts. Some kill you. That is the most basic one. I got one of these from a zine quest a while ago, You Meddling Kids, which uses that, and I think it's a really funny one. This actually doesn't come up very often. This is your standard D&D roll to make sure to go over that. This is the interesting one. So, some games allow you to generate the dungeon via putting down cards. So, you just put them down and that's what's in there. You enter a room, you flip over a card, you do encounter. It's kind of nice because it doesn't... How to put it? There's a physicality to it. And if you were to structure it so that you had like deck 1, deck 2, deck 3, which I have seen exactly one of these solo RPGs do. I'd have to look up the name. I tried to play it a bit, but the cards ended up... the cards were freshly bought and like to slide on each other and just slid off the table. It's like, I'll do it later. But it was set up on a Dark Souls idea. And you make Act 1 out of like 2 through 6, and then you slid in, and then you picked from a boss pile and put that at the bottom. And like you'd go through the deck, and if you died, you flip it back over, and you have to, Dark Souls your way back, but you know what you're encountering. And you did basic combat in that. But then you go to the second area, and it reuses some of the cards. Yeah. Well, it's less 8 hearts. It's more 8 of hearts. Look at the book. You now have... usually hearts are good things. So it'd be like a somewhat good event happens in that room. Mark it off. Or there'd be some structure in that room that maybe you can come back to multiple times. Like there's a healing well. You can heal yourself here 3 times. Yeah. If it got really advanced, you might have some encounters going, try to get back to there, but I digress. So, 4 Against the Dark and D100. I don't have the book laying around, but it's D100 is known, D100 Dungeons and D100 Space is a known solo RPG system that actually tries to be it. It's one of the later ones I talked about, where it legitimately tries to be a full game and not just a hodgepodge of it's not a minimal hodgepodge of here's how something that kind of acts like an RPG. It is a full-fledged book, and it has ideas on how you progress and you generate your dungeons. A lot of its claim to fame is that it has tiles. So you would roll your dice, you would get this tile. Does it fit here? Okay, you fit it in there, and then like you could travel around this like looping cave system. And then it also had another set for, you know, like I think castles maybe. It's been a while. I have the book. I never did anything with it, but it was a good thing to look through. And it very much goes off of I'm just going to put here. So you get your room exits and type. Resources. The resources in these games are generally very basic and vague. Like you just, I said it before, you bullshit your way to say, I have this bag of marbles, I throw it on the floor. Or literally, I have a rubber chicken. I set up the rubber chicken to be behind a rock, so when they step on it, it squeaks and they look on the other side of the rock and I can get away. Whatever you can come up with that you could stand. But vague but useful. I make that joke one, but some of them, as I said, are just like literally, you have an item. The item has no stats. Others are like, this is oil. When you run out of it, you are in the dark and you die. Those are the more good ones, but the other ones, they want to give you stuff and then you want to use them for writing and all this sort of stuff. The standard, I want to put it up here, just writing with dice versus actual game. The writing with dice are very much the solo game, or the journaling games. I'm not much of a fan of them. I see hints of greater things in them, but they're all right. I've seen some people use them. Me, myself, and Die had actually used a journaling game to create the big bad evil guy for their next for their current season of running stuff. They literally played the Make-A-Lich game. I don't think I forgot if they mentioned that they failed a run or not, which is completely possible. But it had the good result of it fleshes out the world around it. Because, you know, you read the tables and you just make stuff up and you write it down to fit. But it had enough meat on the bones of, like, the allies are enthralled people or prized artifacts and people who are actually after you. Because that game generated, like, a threat that dislikes you. And it could be like a physical threat or an arcane threat or other such things. But it had enough meat that some cards got harder because you had somebody plotting against you that influenced and helped and made that situation worse. And then you gained like some skills like basically a reroll or an ally you could sacrifice to negate that situation. Enough meat, but it generated a lich that had some ties to various organizations. So he wove that into the world. And that is like the greatest thing you could get out of a journaling thing. But not a lot of them are that kind of stuff. One that I got just to see what it was, and like is the most typical journaling game, is Lighthouse at the Edge of the Universe. Which is literally, you just, it doesn't have an end. You just put it down when you get tired of it, which is probably really quick. I think some people have put it as some of these are the type of games that aren't made to be played, which is kind of harsh, but either way, like, you draw it and like you have an event that goes on, you write down the event and so on and so forth. If you made enough of these sort of journaling games, you could generate background characters, you could generate locations, because I think there are a couple city builder type ones floating out there. But I digress. I spelled resources wrong. 1 second. Bob. There we go. Another thing that comes up, because this is more from old D&D, NPC reactions, because you need a bunch of this. You need to have the NPC relationships. You need to have, I walk upon this area, what does the goblin do? Which is really funny, because back in the old days, a random bugbear could just help you, or be not trying to kill you, just based on a 2d6 roll. No charisma involved. No speak with animal involved. Like, technically skeletons you encounter could be like... I hesitate to say helpful, but unless it's like literally you're invading some fortress, you're supposed to roll the reaction table every time on a random encounter. That's the key word, random encounter. And it's leads to some very silly things that the DM has to dance on the spot and come up with why that's how it's supposed to be. Which is probably a good reason why it's fallen to the wayside, as games have attempted to get more narrative, and like things are pre-planned a lot more, which help and harm it. I mean, it's a lot harder to set up a game when you are literally, you have to set up 9 dungeons in advance and have a plot line. But that's the one I kind of prefer. I do have the leanings to the old style, but the new style is what I'm familiar with and what I get more enjoyment out of. And some people make silly things that, like, you only truly understand your character and begin to roleplay after hundreds of hours of doing that. And that feels like you only start enjoying this game after you spend 100 hours playing it. It gets good after 100 hours. That's not really a good sell, people. But anyways, I digress. And most of these games have an end state. Get 4 of an item. Okay. So these are the most typical things. Well, actually, I should probably put down here, roll and write. The regular trying to turntable, yeah. Am I missing anything? You have your deck of cards for a bunch of prompts. You have your basic dice resolution. You have your deck for generating a dungeon. You have dice for rooms, resources, NPC reactions, and end state, write and roll and write. Is there anything else I'm missing from this? Oh, well, I guess oracles come into here too. Roll for prompt. Roll for yes, no. So the Mythic game emulation guy has a Patreon, surprising, that tries to put out something every month. As well as, I think he's going to drop soon a revision of his Mythic system. Might be neat. But, he's attempted to do some interesting things. Like, how would you do a mystery for a solo RPG? How? Holy crap! I cannot. No. Oh no, that's just the kerneling being weird. Do solo horror. Do solo mystery. Do solo emotional story. That one was kind of weird. But subsystems that actually attempt to emulate more of the DM and a style of story, like the mystery one, it generates clues and you're supposed to like fit the round peg into the square hole and figure out stuff from that. Now I make it sound like it's impossible. It's terribly easy because it's what people do. They try to make sense out of nonsense. One I'm thinking of is Microscope, which I actually have behind me. I finally managed to dig it out. Where Microscope isn't a solo game, but it works on the premise of just connecting random things between like multiple people generating stuff and making a cohesive storyline out of it. It's really neat. And I think that some people really suggest it for world building. Because if you get a group of people and you try, it's like, okay, we're generating the last 100 years of this world. And somebody says, I want there to be the Desert Kingdom. And it was ruled by this redhead guy. And only women are there for some strange reason. Anyways. And then somebody else would go, okay, so the Forest Kingdom didn't really like them and they had a war. And then like you draw lines and you make events and then you eventually kill off characters and then give characters special traits that helped with the kingdom and develop other things. And the other claim to fame was that it's called Microscope because you zoom in on events and you can zoom in on past events. So your character has died that you put a lot of time into. Now you just flesh out all this stuff between when you made him or even before when you made them and add to it. Never done it like this, but it always seemed like a good thing or a good idea. It's unrelated to solo, though I think technically you could use that system with an oracle to do the similar thing. So anyway, just basic ideas here. Anything else I could think of in there? Roll and write. You have your deck of cards, which gets used everywhere. You have basic resolution. You have NPC reactions that come up every once in a while. You have an end state you go for. That's generally the basis of it. And then in the more, we bolt this onto another system. You have your oracles and your subsystems. So I guess I got another layer because this is the only thing I think I could conclude with. Why solo? Why solo RPG player? Why? Test out new systems. I've done this a few times, or at least to try out builds or some character ideas. Because otherwise you're going to be fighting the goblins just to see what it is, but rolling up a situation and going through the first parts, or even rolling a bit of your character's history or side things. Mythic had an actual, in the old edition, I don't think in the new edition it tries to, but it had a character history generator, which is just a different focus table. Oh no, I think it was also the adventure crafter, which is really good for that, where it rolls very chunky events and then you fill them out so you're able to do stuff. So I'll also put that here, character generation, because I know all the books have like, here, roll these tables to make a character, but it doesn't give you like history, allies, things they did, situations to see if system works on. Not fighting gob level. But yeah, testing out a new system. Basically, you roll up your character, you roll some events, and then you try to find in the book what could be used to do that, and then you just go through it. Like, I think I did it a few times with the Index RPG system, which is where I find kind of where the wheels come off for me, and I like it, but I don't like it. And that's how I found out, because it's like, yeah, it's kind of weird how I have a character that I meant to be smart, and I gave some arcane with, and now his magic's really good, which sort of makes sense. But then I have a rogue, and because physical and tools are the lower end of things, and like what you would use for rogue, it now means I can just unarmed am really good at combat, and I can also use swords really well. And also, if it was like, hey, this is a guy who could use guns or can use these magic items, that also translates to, hey, he can use swords really well, and the guns are its own category. So, just a little bit too much overlap between this one section of effort. And I found that out, and I was kind of dismayed at that, but it's a game you're meant to hack, so it could be fixed. I can't spell. Let me fix that. Care actor. That's white. There we go. Now we can see it. Also, history for... Well, I'm still selecting white. There we go. History for your game. Now, the one I really used it for was characters for your game. I've generated a lot of characters for some games. I use actually more of a tarot system just to do a tarot reading, but they can be fleshed out more with, like, as I said, like I said, characters, NPCs. Very different thing. Goals, secret actions, secret abilities. Right, entire I'm not kidding when I say you write the entire history of a random rune in 10 minutes. Because at least the Game Master Oracle, you use your runes as a character. You like roll up like, hey, important events in history, flesh them out with the other oracles for descriptions, ask a few questions, and boom, that's done. Most systems do have, like, most ones that facilitate sandbox do have a way to do that, but solo games can do that. You would do that before the game, or because dragging out the emulator book might be a little heavy for on the fly. You're sad and oh wait, no. Your group canceled. No, yes, that's the real reason, and not that you're sad and lonely. And now a real reason. You bought too many random table books and are now on YouTube. I don't think this is a common reason. I've seen it though. Don't know why I bring it up like this. But yeah. Anyways, with that said, I am going to move on to the the subjective, terrible part. Tables. Oop. Did I lock it? Okay, I didn't lock it. I enjoy me tables. I enjoy my large, massive tables. I find the tables that roll into other tables to be magical. I am enthralled when those tables roll back into the main table. I have seen only one system do this, and it generally doesn't do like this little crappy two-step thing, but it does this massive chain on just rolling a color that can roll back into it. Knave 2 has not released. I'm not quite sold on its system it comes with it, but its tables are magical. Niche. Also, very niche game ideas that you probably wouldn't run for a group, or that you can't really make a ongoing game for. Or slash quick. Like, something you don't want to get. No. It's not that. I'm going to find my Knave RPG now. Or Knave 2, Knave. Yes, there you are. My lovely thing that I need to back up. Oh god. Oh, there it is. That terrified me for a second. I thought maybe I wasn't actually having the thing up. And the browser is not responding. But yeah, the repeat twice. Knave doesn't really do that. Knave. Browser. Okay, let me close you. That reminds me, I need to run Escape from Skullcano Island. It's an interesting little thing. Do I just have... Is there too many... There we go. Okay. I think there might have been just an instance of Edge that... Because I don't have a dedicated PDF reader. Alright. So... I encountered this before. Can I find it again? Because I think it was just a generic color. Or no, it was School of Magic. So a School of Magic, or can... Okay, let me find it first before I start making a fool of myself. Okay, there is Magic School. Let me get to that page. I will note that this is a pre-release because I spent too much money on Kickstarter. Given the things I played, people would know this already. So page 31. There we are. So you have a magic school. And it has your basic things like air, alchemy, meta magic, mirrors. Then it has books. Books says to go to page 40. It also has room themes, which says go to page 16. So I go to page 15. I said page 15. Oh yeah, this is the thing. So I'm in rooms. And then it has thing like city theme. So I go to page 46. So, under city theme, it has stuff like art, asylums, activity, page 19, baths, magic school, page 31. So we did a full loop through multiple tables, though I do think there was a way to get back there on the first jump. But it is a networked, marvelous spaghetti of tables referencing tables that speaks to me on a deep level. And it's like every table is a D100 table. So things can get wacky quick. And I don't think any of these really have, like, thing. Anyways, so back to niche games or quick ideas. Maybe, like I said before, if you're writing up a background character, you want it to be quick. Niche is more, I've seen this pop up before, but there's actually one that tried to run it like a dating sim. It was more role and play. I don't think it was very deep, but it had a weird system from what I've seen of it. But anyways, or you want to run a yeah, I forget what it's called. I was surprised that it existed on the market, but it just tried to be cute. It wasn't like trying to be an actual, like dirty one. But like other niche ones are like, hey, you're running a shop. You're you're a lighthouse keeper at the edge of the universe. Or you're a literal Scooby-Doo villain. And what do you do to try to scare off those kids? And their weird sidekick. That game really needed a weird sidekick table to roll on, but it didn't have it. Like micro RPGs, I guess, is what it would come up with, but you aren't getting 3 other people to play it. The other side is it's quick, so you use it to make NPCs, you use it to make events of history, all this other stuff. Technically, the games without numbers, they really, in the past, I don't think Cities attempted to bring in the solo rules. But the earlier ones definitely did, which is more of how Scarlet Hero worked. But all the games are very much set up, you could just set them up to run. Because it also has actions that are taken by people that are not part of your group. And that's very much a key. Like Mythic Game Master emulator has the threads. The threads don't need to be related to you. You're involved with them, but the king is marrying off his daughter is a thread that's going on and causing stuff to happen that you're not influencing. Maybe you do get involved with it, but it's its own little beast that's happening. So the king trying to marry off his daughter, is the princess, starts a war. Because one of the suitors insulted another one from a different kingdom. And now you have this war going on because of this thread, which becomes its own thread, or maybe it gets merged into this thread. Who knows? Niche game ideas. Or the secret thing, mine for roguelike ideas. Because these subsystems and how to roll up this stuff inspires me a lot of like, wow, I'd like to make a roguelike of this. I'd like to make a game system from this, yada yada. I've even considered how I would make a generic engine for these sort of, Oh, I didn't bring this up. Call of Cthulhu has a series of solo role-playing books. Its basic starter box comes with Alone Against the Flames, which is very introductory. You actually roll up your own character in it, or at least do array quick builds. but you straight up make your own character, which will influence if you can actually complete the game or if you can do things easier or harder. I don't think I ever completed it. I got sacrificed once or twice, as you do. It also has the most intimidating one I've ever seen of... excuse me, I'm actually going to pull up that book, because that should be down here on that shelf. Yes, I just live with a bunch of shelves. There it is. Alone Against the Ice. Or Alone Against the Dark. Defying the Triumph of Ice. This release, I don't think this was a remake, because there were 2 Alone Against books. Yes, I have multiple shelves of books. One of them actually fell down. I put it together and noticed it was always a little off. But one of the screws was slightly tilted, and it finally tore through and just self-destructed. I have to get new shelves, but Alone Against the Dark. It starts up with some pre-made characters, but then you can make your own characters. And a note in this, because you're supposed to take a lot of notes of what goes on. It has a level of victory table based on how many characters you lost. If you lost 0, that was a magnificent success. 1, 2, 3, an excellent success. 4 through 8, a moderate success. 9 through 12, a passable success. 13 or more was a failure. This game legitimately is expected that you might burn through 12 characters and considers that a success. It's not a thick book, but I'm intimidated by the sucker, and I have not yet run it for myself. Anyways, I'm going to return this back to the shelf. I need to get more shelves. Need to categorize my shelves, which is terrible. And yes, I do have shelves full of books. Just on this floor alone, I have 2 small shelves. I have a full-size bookcase, though the top is kind of occupied by random art stuff and drawing figures. I have 2 minor like side table shelves, which are full. I have a weird stand that I put all my floppies in, which is a brochure thing. I have another brochure thing, which wasn't big enough, but I still use it. And then I have a little cubby thing that I put other things in. I need to fill that one corner, though. I am attempting to turn this place into effectively a game library. That people can be horrified by how many gaming books they had when they, you know, have to shovel my corpse out. Also sitting above my monitor, I have Dragonbane, which has its own solo system in there for a dungeon, which that was half the reason I got it. And also it's a very interesting variant on like a D&D sort of game, because it is a D20 system, but it's a roll under one, and then it has other aspects to it. Anyways, I mine for roguelike ideas. This is self-explanatory. I don't know why I bring it up. It is actually how I got deep into this was Me, Myself, and Die, which came about during the pandemic. And it finally sold me on the Game Master emulation system, or at least explained it, because I've known about that for years. And that thing is impenetrable. If you just look at some of the charts and tables they have, it makes no sense. Maybe I should do that one time, is actually go over how to do Game Master Emulator. Though I think I have in the past, but... But anyways, mechanics I like and would like to see. So I brought up decks before. As I said, I've only seen this once. But I think you could make a really good system where you slowly build the deck. I know there is a video game out there called Hands of Fate that effectively builds your random deck based on some choices you make. Like if you anger the rats, it now adds rat cards to the deck until you can pacify the rats, and then it will remove them. And I don't know how cheaty it is, but it's there. And I think you could make a really interesting game about that. The prototypical one I always think of is making a little alchemist game, because it's, well, cute. And somehow alchemist running a shop is a popular thing. Oh yeah, it has a sequel. But just on thinking of it, you put in your low-level things of like people making requests. And it pops up, you roll a dice, and like some of them allow you to improve your skill, so on and so forth. And then like, I don't know, after so many hands or something, or so many times you do that, you shuffle in the next parts, the next sections of it. And maybe you put in like a few personalities that are allies or enemies or whatever, and you build until like an end of the game, like the Alteria series, where you have so many weeks until you have to, like, your alchemist place is going to be sold off, or most of them are pretty much like that. I know there is one where you save the world, but it's an outlier. Those games were never about saving the world. They were about dealing with your friends and trying to run an alchemist shop. But if I'm going to say it's effectively a deck builder, because that really sells it. Actual resource managers, which does happen. Items, luck rerolls. These things actually, I think it was put in Sid Meier, was it? A game is only made interesting by its choices. A lot of these games don't attempt to have choice. They attempt to have resolution mechanics that you write off of. And I don't quite like that. What do you mean, which kind of game would sell well? Like the Save the World versus you're a cute alchemist doing cute alchemist things? Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much what I would think would go for. It sticks around in my head. Another one I think of, I've actually attempted to prototype it once or twice, was the VTuber game. And it was going off like the system of each of the suit of cards was a type of thing. Like, you know, you have your gaming, you have your creative, and then I think it was like money related, or like how to money related, and money related, and what was the last one? Do I have it in my notepad? Last history? Probably not. No, I do not. But was thinking on it, and it effectively went off of like the truncated system, but some of the things, like whatever you chose, you put the higher things in there. And I wanted to try having 2 decks of cards. One that is your event deck, and one is like your randomization and what do you want to call it? Your randomization and difficulty deck. because they usually only have one deck of cards, and that sets up everything. That sets up how things are difficult, that sets up how things are being rolled, that sets up your props. But having the second deck there as your randomization deck would do some things. But that said, what I also wanted to have was choosing events, quote unquote. So with the VTuber one as example, you would set up your schedule, which means you draw out 5 cards and you have to like pick 2. And the rest get thrown away. So you aren't always just going up against a singular event that you have no choice over. And your only choice is possibly using a resource to re-roll your dice to succeed it. That makes more sense in a like literally a dungeon crawl, but something where you're supposed to have agency, not so much, because you want to make choices. And like the VTuber schedule thing really fits better than like customers coming in for, you know, like Cute Alchemist game. I wouldn't know how Cute Alchemist game would possibly come up besides like, you know, the old-fashioned guild quest board where you might be able to attempt to do some things. And those stick around and like some of them get shuffled back in. That might be an idea I have to write down. But that is something I've never seen in any of these solo games. It's something that gives you a choice of what thing you want to do. And I think that would be a big gain in it. Like, some people might not like it and just like draw off the top of the deck. Okay, sure. That's fine. But in the proper context, it seems pretty all right. Also, in the VTuber one, it has some, you know, story choices like, oh, I want to try to get as many collabs as possible to have people that come in and yada, yada, yada. Or, I just want to do the easy stuff and try to make a lot of fan rolls or whatever. So that when I end the game, I can have a bunch of fans purely from succeeding stuff. Lots of choices to that sort of thing. And I really think if I wanted to get deep, I make the prototype of that on paper, then I make a literal, you know, Godot game. I think I could pull that off. A little bit of sprite graphics, a little bit of other things. Good to go. Anyways, I digress. Choosing events. Draw hand from deck. Some get lost forever. Because that's what I would think is the interesting part. Like, if you have to make a choice between I want to try to gain fame, or I want to try to make money, or I want to have a chance to impress this other, like in the VTuber example, VTubers so that now they're a friend. There's some meat there. It's not just you roll the dice, event succeeds or fails, draw next one. Anyways. But those are the top, like, sort of things I have for mechanics that I would like to see. Something that builds based on your choices. Something that has actual resources that you use because they enhance the thing, or you get to avoid a problem, which I have seen, so they're out there. And choosing events, which I've never seen. That would be for, like, you know, the general sort of solo standalone game that isn't like bolted onto D&D or Shadowrun or other games where, you know, you have your oracles and you just want the game to run so you can play it, not so much as an experience, which I really think solo games can do well. The guy who does the Mythic system has attempted 2 times, I think he's made systems that try to run a dedicated story. All the events are set up around the story. All, like, the encounters are set up around the story. And I think that also has legs on it. Like, imagine a D&D game that is literally, go slay the dragon. So you have your encounters for it's still D&D in the end, but it has encounters of like, oh, you encounter this NPC, and then you roll their relation to the dragon or their relation to whatever, and you deal with that, and that's a lot more, and then you resolve with that. That's a lot more meaty than the standard generic tables. Well, you can get there. It's less steps of having to think. And I think Mythic's game emulation system really goes with, if you can't think of something in like 30 seconds, re-roll, because you're doing too much time thinking. But yeah. So I guess it kind of boils down to, is this game system supposed to be self-contained? It has its niche little game thing that's trying to do. Like it's a tabletop video game. Even though like you might be able to finesse like some role-playing things into it, or is the thing a game master emulator? That's the two sides of these. And I like experimenting more with solo contained game because it generates interesting ideas. Anyways, my throat's also a little bit dying, so I don't know. Maybe for a future stream. Let's just put this down here. So I'm going to waffle a bit about this and then call it a day, because I have been streaming for an hour and a half. And I'm mildly hungry because I didn't go and get breakfast. And that was the whole point of making this be at 8:30. Anyways, so time limit. Because one thing, like, the journaling games are meant to go on forever, unless they're like Wretched and Alone, in which case you just die. But technically they could go on forever. You could also win too, but it's near hopeless. Gain allies. Advanced character. So here's something I also haven't seen too much in these. Like, sure, you have some stat stuff. But in Alchemist game, I would think that you would want to, you know, learn how to... Because the prototypical one is like the Alteria series, which is you learn how to make stuff. That might be an interesting thing to have, to learn to make items, because you might need certain items for certain things. And then you have to go gather reagents. Anyways. Progressive. Some thoughts I had on the progressive deck building. So the simplest one is you succeed this event, it removes that card from the game, but then it adds in, like, you know, 3 more of the later cards. So you make the good health potion, which is like a difficult one that you've never made before. You check that off of your list, you remove that card, and then you get like more difficult requests of alchemist items to make. Yeah. Shop reputation, economy. I didn't think of the economy, but that is a funny one to have in there. Racketeer really allowed you to crash the economy. But I don't want it to be purely like, you know, you're playing an economy game. Oh, speaking of that, I keep thinking of this, but I never got a chance to bring it up in the sections. Is the basic types of dice rolls. You have your flat roll, which is, you know, your D20. You have your bell curve. Now, this is one that's come up. I've seen it show up in actually games that try to emulate the stock market or like other economy games. Oh yeah, that is a good idea. But here's the thing, I don't want to get past 2 decks of cards. Though that said, events can be made so that it is bad event, you roll on the table, and bad event happens. And that's the bad event you take. But you can't shove too much into the deck or it becomes too unwieldy. Like if you have to have 4 decks of cards going on, I think 2 is the max, and 2 is what I'd like to work with. I'm going to also put that over here. Event deck and resolution deck. Because that's a concept I'm playing with. But anyways, diff roll. D6 minus D6. So this sucker is the inverse of a bell curve. Because, well, it is actually a bell curve, but in disguise. So a bell curve, you know, this is 10 or 11 on, you know, your standard thing. A diff roll or a difference roll is effectively this, where it's 0, and then, you know, plus 5, minus 5. Excuse me for 1 second. Or not. I'm probably going to sneeze in 5 minutes now. But anyway, a diff roll was used for some oil game. It came up. And it's used to push, like, I think it's like, actually it uses a pure positive difference. It can be a negative difference where you have 2 dice. But it can also be effectively a logarithmic, I believe that is, roll, where the standard result is 0, but a very uncommon result is 5. And for the oil game, it's like every time it hits 10, like an event happens. Like after everything you roll the difference roll and like it moves the counter along here, it hits 10 and an event happens. I think this is the key to a very interesting game. I don't know how. I don't know how I'd use it. But it has enough randomness and it's uncontrolled randomness, but it has enough variance that it can sit on here for a while, but then all of a sudden it can just do a jump out of nowhere. Or it could steadily go up here and then do a jump and get up. And that emulates a lot of, how to put it? It's used in emulating the stock market because, you know, price stays the same. Or price goes a little up, price goes a little down. Price out, for no reason, does a spike. And that can be useful for events because you don't want to have, well, Kingdom Death kind of has this. To bring up things. Kingdom Death has big chunky events every time you come back from a hunt. And that's useful in a game that doesn't have a lot of events. Now in a game where you have an event like every roll or like every couple rolls and you expect to make like 20 of them, or like you're expected like possibly to have like 20 or 50 of them over the course of a game. That's a little daunting. Now, if you could have it like happen occasionally, and like you get the special secret event, like technically this could be emulated by rolling a d10, and if it comes up a 10, you do something. But this is always progressing towards it. Well, most of the time progressing towards it. It's actually somewhat rare that it never moves for an extended period of time. But anyways, I digress. I want to see difference rolls. But yeah, time limit. You gain allies, adventure characters. Because I would think cute alchemist game, you want to have cute other characters to have some stories with, and sometimes they help you and they do stuff. It's what you want. And you advance the character, you progressive deck building, you take on some challenges, or you gain new abilities, you add new cards to the deck. Fun stuff. Event and resolution deck is my own little thing. Reagents affect outcome. I think in some of the earlier games, it pretty much had, like, you made a dice roll based on the quality of your ingredients. And I know some of the later challenges or later requests, you have to make something of various qualities. And if you're picking from the tags of some crappy ones, it might just go bust. So that's an interesting thought. Oh, I don't know what else to say. I think I'm kind of hitting my limit on this because I can only yap so much about solo RPGs. I could for a long while, but I have no direction. And my throat is starting to kill me. It's been a week. But, yeah. So that's a thought. Maybe one day I'll come on stream and I'll make a... I'll noodle out and I will grope around until I find how the cute alchemist girl game goes. But that is not today, because I have things I need to do today. So with that said, I think I'm going to call it a stream. Thank you for coming to hear me talk about a very random and obscure topic. I'm not sure how much I got out of there or how much I advocated for it, but yes. Solo RPGs, I like them. I like the tables they give. I like the random little stories they can create and be used for other games. I probably need to do a few more of them, but I need to organize my books to find all my solo books, which I have not touched yet. That said, I literally have Dragonbane sitting in front of me, and I should probably do that one day. It's an interesting little system. What I really need to do, and I've hesitated, is to make a series of doing a solo RPG that is more than, as somebody put it, the fast food of RPGs. Because I do them a little quick and slapdash. I will admit it. I'm just going through to show it off and then call it a day and never touch again. I should possibly attempt to do, let's say, a goal of a 3-part series on one of them, or make my own and roll with it and see what can happen with there. But that's for a later day. At this point, given that I am streaming every week instead of every 2 weeks, which is kind of weird, but it's happened, maybe I can do that. Because I do also want to do more streaming of the rigging stuff and models. I have another one I have to do from scratch. That doing a 4-hour stream, which I couldn't do today, or 5-hour, or however long I may think to take, would be a good one to do. So I might plan that for next week or 2 weeks out from now. And then I can finally start possibly setting up commissions for myself to try and see if I can sell my ware to some people that could use it. That'd be good. Anyways. You know what? You know what? This is a little too big. This is what I live on. Okay. Whoops, that's low. This is how I solve that problem. You know, I just contracted by 1. And then I fix the edges later. Like this. I know I didn't actually boot 2 goals on the anniversary stream, but you've done this a million times. There you go. Does that fit? That fits. This is going to need to be bigger. Okay, fine. Canvas size, you go up here. Plus 64, plus 64. That should work. What did I do? Did I hit 8? I must have hit 8 or something. Plus 64, put you in the corner. Plus 64. I should put this on the own layer, so I will do that now. Let's say before... And what prompt this? Shot solo RPG. Finish, not Final Fantasy. That system is pretty well made and I could do it. I'll say. Whoops. Am I spelling anything wrong? Okay. There, I put it to paper, which means I'll feel terrible when I don't do it. I still won't do it, but I should feel terrible. And I think this is on the wrong layer. Yeah, that doesn't add anything. Let's just mirror. Mirror, why? You're supposed to be in the middle. Oh, turn off mirroring. Okay. I didn't think I'd make this, but Why not? Well, I know why not, so I can just, sit and rot in a corner. Not take any risks and do anything, but okay. I think I'm going to post that. I'm going to call this a stream, and I'm going to go get my terrible McBreakfast. Hopefully it'll still be open by then. But anyways, thank you for coming to the stream. At some point I will figure out how to properly make scenes in OBS. I've had thoughts, and I've realized I can actually do the silly... I say silly. The very advanced for no real reason. You've seen VTubers that have the moving scenes. I'm pretty sure those are made in Live 2D, and I've started to understand the animation system. Maybe I'll do something scuffy at one point. Because I literally just have this screen to cover everything while I mess up stuff in the background. It's not even a scene. It's just a PNG that I put on top of everything. I never transition scenes while I run this. Yeah. In OBS? Well, okay. No, I can't do it. I need to go eat. At some other point I'll say something. But either way, thank you for joining. Have a good time of day. If you're really curious about me never posting on the Twitter X app, I'm pretty sure I have a link to it sitting up in my YouTubes. And that's the most you'll get out of me for a shill for the where I go. Anyways, till next time.